This is a ReTV mini doc. Kids who kill. Are they a product of their environment, or are they simply born killers? This mini-series, Killer Kids, will look at some of the most publicised cases of children 12 years and younger who have committed murder. Natsumi Tsuji, aka Nevada Tan, age 11, Sasebo, Japan, kill count 1. At lunchtime on the 1st of June 2004, 11-year-old schoolgirl Natsumi Tsuji, aka Nevada Tan, lured her 12-year-old classmate, Satomi Mitaro, into an empty room at Akubo Elementary School in Sasebo, Japan. There, the killer slit Satomi's throat with a box cutter and left her to bleed to death, returning to her own classroom covered in blood. The girl's teacher noticed that they were both missing and soon found Satomi's body. The killer, known as Nevada Tan due to the jersey she was wearing in a school photo, reportedly told the police she was annoyed by comments Satomi had made about her during internet chats. According to reports, classmates claimed they'd seen her reading horror books, including Battle Royale, about school kids who kill each other. A Japanese family court ruled to put aside her young age due to the severity of the crime, and she was institutionalized until 2008. Since then, known to the internet as Nevada Tan, she became an internet meme with lots of people trying to track her down. Nathaniel Abraham, age 11, Pontiac, Michigan, USA, kill count 1. On the 29th of November 1997, Nathaniel Abraham was only 11 years old when he borrowed a .22 caliber rifle and headed down the street to a hillside near a local convenience store in Pontiac, a suburb located near Detroit, Michigan. It was then that Abraham raised his rifle and shot a random teenager, 18-year-old Ronnie Green, in the head. Cases like this always make me torn. This kid killed a defenseless teenager in cold blood for apparently no reason at all. But on the other hand, I very strongly believe that nurture will always prevail over nature. Should children who experience mental, physical and sexual abuse be punished criminally when they act out, or should we work to finally rescue that child? Nathaniel was arrested and brought up on charges for homicide and faced life in prison, but the prosecution made the suggestion that the young boy be reassessed at 19 and then again at age 21.
Did an 11-year-old Pontiac boy have a true desire to kill or a tragic sense of right and wrong? Good evening, I'm Kristen Smith.
And I'm Harry Hairston. Our first story tonight, a young killer, an 11-year-old Pontiac boy may be tried as an adult after going on a random shooting spree that left an innocent man dead. The child allegedly propped himself up on a hill, aiming at his victim, who was coming out of a party store. UPN 50's Mark Byers joining us now live with the very latest. Mark, where's the boy right now?
Well, Harry, he's being held in the Oakland County Children's Village. And again, we have to remember, we're talking about an 11-year-old child standing less than 5 feet tall and weighing about 65 pounds. Doesn't sound too intimidating, yet some folks in his neighborhood said he terrorized them. Now, on Thursday night, police say the shooting took place. He fired the gun into the head of his victim. And on Friday, after a tip, police found the young man preparing to go out trick-or-treating. A neighbor, Jimmy Pop, said he saw the 11-year-old shortly before the killing firing what appeared to be a .22 caliber rifle at an abandoned house. The boy shared the weapon with a friend who also fired randomly.
"What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just shooting and stuff." And then he like pointed at the abandoned house in the tree and stuff. And I like nodded. He was like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And he's like, "Friend."
Police say a short time later, the boy went to this hill less than a block away and shot Ronnie Green Jr. in the head as he left a convenience store. Kids who know the 11-year-old boy say he has a history of getting into trouble and terrorizing other children. Are you afraid of him?
In some way, yeah.
Why?
Because he used to carry guns, point guns that you don't know if they were loaded or not.
He threatened my grandsons all the time. He threw rocks at my mom's house. I mean, he was dangerous.
But one of the boy's neighbors, Richard Morales, says he saw another side of the 11-year-old who attended Lincoln Middle School. A kid who didn't start trouble and was respectful to adults. Can't believe that the young boy, his friend, could be tried as an adult for murder.
I think that's crazy for him to be charged as an adult. He's only 11 years old.
He was released from juvenile detention in 2007 on his 21st birthday, but Abraham would not stay out of jail for very long. In 2008, he was arrested by an undercover cop and was allegedly found with over 250 ecstasy tablets in his car. He received a 4 to 20-year sentence. In 2012, he was sentenced for assault of a prison employee, which to me seems like perfect timing, as his minimum sentence was 4 years, and that is about how long he was inside for the second time when this incident happened. He was again released from jail in the summer of 2017 and arrested again in 2018 for indecent exposure, assaulting a police officer, and resisting arrest. In 2019, he was sentenced to 6 to 40 years in prison for selling drugs to an undercover police officer in Farmington Hills.
The big story, arrested again.
Nathaniel Abraham, one of the youngest people in the U.S. to be convicted of murder, once again facing criminal charges. This time, he could spend decades behind bars.
Abraham just this afternoon appearing before a judge. Police say he was selling drugs in Farmington Hills and Pontiac.
It is just the latest in a long list of troubles for Abraham since he was convicted as a child back in 1997. Tonight, new questions are being raised about Michigan's juvenile justice system.
I feel real good, man. And, I'm enjoy it, appreciate it, and not take advantage of it.
His notoriety grew in 2007 wearing flashy clothes. Abraham released from juvenile detention under Michigan law on his 21st birthday. A decade earlier, he'd been convicted of second-degree murder for the shooting death of Ronnie Green outside a liquor store in Pontiac. Dr. Gerald Shiner worked on the case for the defense.
What you have is an 11-year-old kid with an IQ of 70 who's totally unsupervised in his neighborhood. Running loose, mother paid no attention to him.
Dr. Shiner says no one should be surprised that as an adult, Abraham now has 3 drug cases, and just last year, an indecent exposure case, coupled with a resisting and assaulting police during that arrest. The doctor says Abraham should have been placed in a tight foster home setting with parents as a teen.
He needed help, he needed supervision, he needed vocational rehabilitation, he needed an education not only in how to read and write, but how to socialize and how to live in the real world.
After his arrest last night, his defense attorney says Abraham was kept in the K block in the Oakland County Jail, isolated in a small cell with only a blanket.
Jesse Pomeroy, age 11, Charlestown, Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Kill count is in dispute, but possibly as many as 29. Now I can't go any further until I point out that Robbie Williams has been time travelling again. Either that, or he is Jesse Pomeroy's clone. The son of a Civil War veteran, Jesse Pomeroy was born in Charlestown, Boston, Massachusetts, on the 29th of November 1859, with a defect in his right eye which made it appear almost completely white. His alcoholic parents were often extremely violent and abusive, and not only would he be bullied by other kids because of his appearance, but also by his own family. Pomeroy was reportedly an extremely twisted child from the start. Today, he would probably be defined as a psychopath, and the FBI would probably consider him an organised lust killer, one who tortures and kills for erotic pleasure above all else. By the age of 11, he had begun luring young boys to remote areas, stripping them nude, tying them up, and beating them ruthlessly with a rope or other objects, as well as often cutting them with a knife. In 1872, he was finally arrested for the ongoing attacks and sentenced to reform school. The Boston Globe covered the story, and the last line of the article said, "It is generally concluded that the boy is mentally deficient." In 1874, Pomeroy was living back with his family and attacked 10-year-old Katie Curran, then later 4-year-old Horace Mullin. While Pomeroy would eventually confess to 29 murders in total, probably a lie, he was convicted of the murders of 2 young children, 4-year-old Horace Millen, and 10-year-old Katie Curran. On the 18th of March 1874, Curran disappeared, and the last place she was seen was a shop owned by Jesse's parents that he often worked at. Her disappearance was strange to the police, but they didn't have any evidence to implicate Jesse, who was only 14 at the time. Some 5 weeks later, in April 1874, the body of Horace Millen was discovered by 2 kids walking along the beach in search of shells and other fun things. He was almost decapitated, strangled, cut with a knife, almost completely castrated, and had been set on fire. A witness saw a young boy running from the scene but couldn't make out who it was. But this was enough for police to immediately begin to suspect Pomeroy. Upon finding him, police noticed that his boot prints matched the boot prints found at the scene. He had blood all over him, and he was carrying a bloody knife. The police were certain that they had their man, or boy. They arrested Jesse Pomeroy and pressured him into a confession to the murder of young Horace. Jesse would be sentenced to die for the 2 murders he was charged with, but shortly before his 17th birthday, his sentence would be commuted to life in prison, largely due to his young age. Jesse Pomeroy would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Jordan Brown, age 11, New Beaver, Pennsylvania, USA. Kill count disputed. Jordan was finally exonerated in 2018. I remember reading about this case a few years ago, and it never seemed right to me. I knew this kid was innocent. In February 2009, the then 11-year-old Jordan Brown was accused of murdering his father's 26-year-old fiancée, Kenzie Hook, who was 8 months pregnant at the time. Her unborn son was also killed. While the soon-to-be mother was sleeping in her bed in their New Beaver, Pennsylvania farmhouse, the police claimed that Jordan shot her in the back of the head using a gun given to him by his father. Kenzie's youngest daughter alerted nearby adults to the situation after Jordan had gotten onto the school bus. Police arrived later that day to find a shotgun in the house with the smell of burnt gunpowder. Jordan was interviewed by Pennsylvania State Police twice the day of the incident before being arrested the following morning. It was later confirmed that Kenzie was killed by a youth model Harrington & Richardson 20-gauge shotgun. Prosecutors speculated that Jordan killed his stepmother because he was angered by the pending birth of a new sibling and was jealous about the attention his stepsisters received. Initially, Jordan was tried as an adult but was eventually found guilty of first-degree murder as a juvenile. In 2018, Jordan was exonerated as the court determined that the evidence could have been planted by an unknown assailant and thus was insufficient to find him culpable beyond a reasonable doubt. From the first time I came across this case, I never believed that Jordan was guilty, and at some point I'll cover this case in more detail. Not only did Kenzie and her unborn child lose their lives, but an innocent 11-year-old lost the most important 10 years of his life.
Is about an exclusive interview with this young man who grew up behind bars. He was arrested for murder at just 11 years old. His conviction was just overturned, and now he's telling his story for the first time. Sitting down with ABC's Juju Chang for a special 2020. Juju, so many years lost for this young man.
Absolutely, Michael. And you know, there were headlines everywhere. He was dubbed the world's youngest monster. Jordan Brown, though, has never spoken publicly about being arrested for murder as a 5th grader until now. This summer, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, in a rare move, overturned his murder conviction, and Jordan spoke exclusively to us for tonight's 2020 about how his childhood was turned upside down.
Child killer accused of a shocking crime at the age of 11.
It was the brutal crime and shocking arrest that garnered national headlines. February 2009, 26-year-old Kenzie Hauk found dead in her rural Pennsylvania farmhouse. She was 8.5 months pregnant. The suspect, her 11-year-old soon-to-be stepson, Jordan Brown. Less than 24 hours later, state police arrested Jordan, accusing him of using his shotgun, a hunting gift from his dad, to fire one fatal bullet to the back of her head, execution style, before getting on the bus for school.
This is the mugshot that was taken.
I was crying in the picture. I was crying that whole night. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know where I was at, like what was going on or anything.
Did you understand what you stood accused of?
No, I didn't understand.
What do you see in this mugshot?
I see somebody who just committed a murder. That's why there's a mugshot.
With his son facing life without the possibility of parole if tried as an adult, Chris Brown began a years-long fight to free Jordan, driving 4 hours every day to visit him in juvenile detention.
We were there over 1,000 times.
And so what made you need to be there?
He's my son.
But 3 years after his arrest, a now 14-year-old Jordan is found guilty in juvenile court of double homicide.
Obviously, the police believe that you killed Kenzie. Did you kill Kenzie?
No.
Undeterred and convinced of his innocence, his lawyers bring his case to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And just this past July, a stunning victory for the Browns. Pennsylvania's Supreme Court sides with Jordan, writing that the prosecution had presented insufficient evidence. Jordan's conviction overturned.
Everything's gone. That made me happy, and then the truth finally got out.
During his incarceration, Jordan taught himself how to play guitar and became a pretty good basketball player.
No, I'm not angry. I mean, I think the whole, like, what happened and the way it happened is BS, but I'm not. Can I say that?
Now 21, Jordan says he's determined to focus on brighter days ahead.
What are your hopes for your future?
Well, I just want to be successful. I just want to graduate college, get a job in my major and be successful.
And what do you want to tell the world about you?
That I'm innocent. That's like the only thing I really want people to know.
You know, I first spoke to Jordan's dad nearly a decade ago for GMA, and for tonight's 2020, we interviewed several investigators, the original prosecutor, and members of Kenzie's family who are still convinced that Jordan is guilty, despite what the Supreme Court says was a lack of evidence. But there's also tonight a new witness who was there that morning in the house who has never spoken publicly before, not for the trial, not for the defense team, the young daughter who found Kenzie's body. And honestly, Michael, she seems to shed new light.
Nelly Cornelison, age 11, Wichita, Kansas, USA, kill count 1. In 1902, 11-year-old Nelly Cornelison slit her 3-year-old sister's throat and almost severed her head completely off with her father's razor and blamed her 5-year-old brother. At first, the doctor thought it would be impossible for the child to live, but the little one seemed to have considerable vitality, and he was determined to save her if possible. In his examination, Dr. Hoffman found that the child's windpipe had been cut in two and she was breathing through the wound. The muscles which moved the head on the left side had also been cut and the jugular veins were uninjured. The doctor sewed up the windpipe and made it airtight. He had some hopes that the threads would hold it together. He sewed up the awful gash in the neck, taking in all about 35 stitches, and had to give her a hypodermic injection of nearly half a pint of salt water to revive her. The stitching showed such good results that for a time, Dr. Hoffman had some hopes of her recovery, the hope of chance. But the little one collapsed and died very suddenly. Nelly did not go to jail, but went to live with her uncle for a period of time. Robert Sandifer, aged 11, Chicago, Illinois, USA, kill count 1.
I want to dedicate this one to Robert, Yummy Sandifer, all other little young niggas that's in a rush to be gangsters.
This is the heartbreaking story of Robert Yummy Sandifer, who was born in Chicago, Illinois on the 12th of March 1983. This is definitely one of those cases that I want to cover in more detail, and in this mini episode I'm just giving you a high level overview of the accepted story that's been put out there. There's so much more to this case that I want to talk about, so be sure to check back for the full story and every side to it. He was nicknamed Yummy because of his love for cookies.
Because he loved cookies.
Nickname is Yummy because he loved cookies?
Yeah.
What was his favorite cookie?
Chocolate chip.
Looking at his bedroom walls covered in posters of Michael Jackson and Disney characters, he seemed like just a regular kid until he joined a gang known as Black Disciples.
We've been asking people about Robert. We went to the scene where he was killed. We've talked to people about it. You were the first relative I've spoken to or I've met. I just wanted to know what you think, what kind of guy he was.
Hey man, he was a little kid.
He was a kid?
Yeah.
When you say he was, how old was he?
He was 11.
11. What was he like when he was a little kid?
He was a sweet little kid. And he wasn't violent. And he wasn't bad.
If I was to see this young man on the street, I've never seen him, right? What would I see? What did he look like? Was he a tall fellow? Was he
No, he was this short. He was very short. To be his age, he was real short.
Are you scared when you go outside?
Sometimes. I'm not scared.
When is it worse?
At night. When? Yeah, at night. Because that's when they all come out shooting close to your house. Scared to get by the window. Yeah. They might shoot through the window and shoot you.
Did you think Yummy ever did any of the shooting?
I know the little boy. I took some time out with him. And he seemed kind of quiet. You know, he respects me. And he liked to be with me. I never had 1 minute a problem with that young man. I took him on a trip with me at the police department. We had a program down there for the kids, you know, that I did some volunteer work at 5th District.
Yummy didn't have a great childhood and suffered horrific abuse, and by age 2 his body was covered in cigarette burns and bruises. His sister was once taken to the emergency room with burns on her genitals, and their mother, Lorena, claimed that she had fallen on the radiator. The nurse, however, knew that this was impossible due to the severity and the position of her injuries.
Yes, I think the child was lost. The child was from a home without the proper upbringing that he needed. He had, like I said, from 22 months old. How many babies, 22 months old, and got 2 brothers, or a brother and sister or whatever, but he has 2 other siblings, 3 and 5 years old, and you gonna take a 22-month baby to the hospital with cigarette burns on his butt? Please, that's brutality on that child. And then the baby's left in the care of a 3 and a 5-year-old. Where's the responsibility for that?
What did happen to you? What do you know about what happened to you?
Yummy lived in a nice house and stuff like that. He was an 11-year-old boy. He got beat by his father. He had burn marks all over him, stuff like that.
Did you ever hear him get beat? Did you ever see him get beat?
Not in front of outside or nothing. Like when they get in trouble, I think they whoop him. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Did he ever complain about it?
Are the reports that we hear about accurate, about him being arrested, about the problems with him, about the abuse? Is any of that accurate?
No.
Are you surprised at all the attention? Yeah, really. Why are you surprised? Because they blew it out of proportion. What did you say? You can't believe that this happened? Why? It's reality. It's happening all over every day, nationwide.
He was a nice kid as far as, me and my son. The time that I got to know him, he was nice to me. Well, I'm not going to get myself upset about what the people think about me, because I still got to let live and let live, so I'm sorry about the people, want to believe whatever you want to believe about Yummy Sandifer.
When Yummy was 3, he and his 6 siblings were removed from his abusive home and sent to live with their grandmother, Janie Fields. But her home wasn't any better. Fields was already raising her daughter's other 4 children along with 5 of her own. At one point or another, nearly all of her 10 children and 30 grandchildren lived with her. The environment was far from a nurturing one, and Yummy took to the streets to find a family.
God have blessed me to be the mother of all the children, praise God. Somebody counted my grandchildren and great-grand and says I had 106 altogether.
By aged 8, Yummy had given up on school and resorted to a life of crime. He began stealing cars and breaking into houses. During his childhood, Yummy was charged with 23 felonies and 5 misdemeanors, but due to his young age, he never spent a long time in jail. In June of 1994, Yummy was removed from his grandmother's house and was sent to a juvenile shelter after being caught driving a stolen car. Family Services recommended that Yummy be placed in a long-term facility out of state because Illinois didn't have any facilities to handle youths of this age. A judge denied this request and sent him back to live with his grandmother, and he soon resumed his life with the Black Disciples.
He was a nice kid,
He has like a long police record. I mean, started when he was 9 years old.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, that was 2 years, must have been 2 difficult years for him, right?
Well, I tried to talk to Robert during those times,
What did you say to him?
I would ask him to, get into some kind of boy club, or is it any Boy Scouts, or, community centers and stuff like that. Because I have my other kids in community centers.
What did he say? Oh, Mom, don't worry about me?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. I'll be all right, yeah.
How long did you know him?
About a year.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What was he like?
Bad.
Bad? Like, when you say bad, what do you mean?
Fighting, stealing, breaking in people's houses.
Did you ever see, like, the police coming to his house?
Every other day.
And on the 28th of August 1994, when Yummy was just 11 years old, he was ordered to take out a hit on a rival gang member. He had been attempting to kill that rival gang member by spraying bullets across the street and wound up opening fire on a group of youths and accidentally killed 14-year-old Siobhan Dean, who was just 10 yards away from her home at the time.
I can't say who did it because I wasn't there. I cannot say something happened that I didn't see. That deep down in my heart, I love the little boy. And I do have deep sympathy for the family. I do care about the family.
Numerous people saw the murder and witnesses were able to identify the girl's killer as Yummy, but after the gang got news of what he did, they were afraid that he would rat them out to the police once they found him. So senior gang members ordered the execution of Yummy. Cragg, 16, and Derek Hardaway, 14, spotted Yummy while he was waiting for a taxi and gave him no other choice but to get in the car with them. He was told to get into the back seat and lay face down, and they drove him to a viaduct 9 blocks away. Yummy walked a short distance into the tunnel and got on his knees when he was shot twice in the back of the head with a .25 caliber pistol.
It was an unusually chilly September night in 1994 as the body of an 11-year-old was loaded into the back of an ambulance. He had been shot twice in the back of the head in a hit ordered by the leaders of the Black Disciples.
The younger brother we knew that morning, before the older brother that we didn't know nothing about him, because he's being tried as an adult in his case.
Why do people believe that these fellas are innocent?
Everybody who knows them and who knows the family don't believe for one cotton-picking second that they're capable of murder.
When you found out that he was killed, right? What did you think?
It shocked me. He shouldn't have got killed like that. He didn't have to die the way he was killed, but that's the life you live. That's what happens.
Did you know the little boy?
Yeah, well, my friend, he go to Vivi.
He was your friend. What was he like?
He was bad.
Are these bad? Was it? Did you say Robert Sandifer was bad, right?
Yeah.
It took me years to really admit and accept my role in it.
What happened that night?
Chaos.
Craig was only 16 years old when his mugshot was plastered on TV, arrested for the murder of 11-year-old Robert Yummy Sandifer. His brother Derek, 14 at the time, was too young for his mugshot to be released. He was convicted of driving the getaway car. All three, Craig, Derek, and Yummy, members of the same gang, chasing money, respect, and trying to make a name for themselves.
For me, it was more like identity. It was more like, okay, I want to belong to something. I want to be a part of something.
It's an addiction. It's a strong addiction, and it pulls you in quick.
Chicago police quickly identified 11-year-old Robert Sandifer as the gunman. That led to an intense 3-day manhunt. Gang leaders decided that Robert needed to be silenced because he knew too much, so they ordered Craig to kill him.
Why did Robert die?
By means of not my control.
And was it your life versus his life?
Absolutely.
You thought it was that simple as either you do this or you die.
And that's how it always boils down. It's not like any wiggle room when you live in that lifestyle.
So you're saying you had no other choice?
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Derek refused to leave his brother's side.
A lot of people don't know that he actually took me home, and I can just feel someone right. So when I asked him what's going on, and he told me everything, I refused to let him go by himself.
I should have been more of a big brother and just get out, right? But at the time, that ain't the way you think. I'm still a minor. We still kids.
Hours after the murder, both brothers were in custody, and months later, they were convicted felons. Craig, 60 years for murder, Derek, 45 for driving the getaway car. They were the only two ever tried in the case, even though they say others were involved.
Why not tell?
Because I was believing in the foolishness they was telling me. If far as the gangs and that lifestyle.
What did they tell you?
How they gonna be there, support, take care of us, our families, everything.
And?
Nothing. Literally nothing. No letter, no contact, no money for me, my family, they needs, no lawyer. Literally nothing.
The autopsy showed the physical evidence of his hardened and abusive life with his tiny body covered in scars. It is important to remember that there are at least 2 victims in this story, 14-year-old Siobhan Dean, and although 11-year-old Robert may have pulled the trigger of the gun that killed Siobhan, he was a victim of horrific abuse from everyone around him.
And one thing, she was a very neat young lady. She loved to keep her hair pretty, and she loved to keep herself neat and clean. She was very polite. She was very polite to everybody. She was just that kind of young lady.
I want to say, children are dying rapidly, day after day. Maybe it's time we open our eyes and make a better place to stay. From the older generation to the young generation, please put down the gun.
Thanks for watching. If you got this far, I actually love you. If you enjoyed the content, give it a thumbs up. If you want to support this channel, smash that subscribe button now. What are you waiting for? A massive thank you to the people who have kindly supported my channel, the official ReTV supporters who sponsor this content. You guys are awesome. Peace. You've been watching a ReTV mini doc.